All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kabbalah Café. And by the way, Anthony, we did a shout out to Anthony before. Anthony brings the cafe to Kabbalah Café. I bring the Kabbalah. I try to bring the Kabbalah, but Anthony definitely brings the cafe to Kabbalah Café. No? Oh, you're saying, hold on. Sandrine says maybe it should not be called Kabbalah Café. Maybe it should be called Kabbalah and brunch, like something bigger than just cafe. Cafe maybe is underselling it. Because in this place you can get coffee and soon to be more coffee.
It's almost like a Kabbalah brunch.
Kabbalah brunch. I'll say this, the alliteration of Kabbalah Cafe works. So we might just keep it for that.
Brunch and Kabbalah.
Brunch and Kabbalah.
Kabbalah brunch.
The Kabbalah, yeah, I'm sure there's something there. As a man who's come up with many corny titles, I'm sure we could come up with another one. I'm sure we can figure out something. Well, no. So this is the, yes, of the hot breakfast, and starting from next week, well, there's going to be one in a few weeks because of the Rebbe's Yard site. We'll do another special round. But yeah, over the summer, we revert to a standard Kabbalah Cafe breakfast, which is bagels, lox, cream cheese, orange juice, coffee, tea. We don't have live chefs. We don't have live chefs.
Coming out fresh.
The bagels we heat up the bagels, but they're not being, there's no flour in anyone's nose. All right, let's go. So Kabbalah. So today I want to speak about intellect and emotions, which happens to be one of the favorite topics of Kabbalah. And by the way, I am grateful for all of you being here and all of you being here as well online. And I'm grateful for the AC working. Now, how do I know it's working? Oded, are you with me on this? Huh? Number one, I walk in, it's cool. Number two, I hear it. Yes. I hear it. And I'm like, I've spoken to everybody that has been involved in this building and no one knows how this works. But I'm grateful whenever we walk in, and if I were, blaspheming this, I would say the AC gods have responded to our prayers. But I wouldn't say that. But Hashem is being kind to us, and we have the AC today. Now, which is going to be important as the summer months kick in with a vengeance. Intellect and emotions, are they two realities? Are they one reality? And I begin, of course, with a concept that we all have heard in Kabbalah. And if you haven't heard it, it just means you haven't studied enough Kabbalah. You know what? I'll tell you, there's an old Hasidic adage that says, there are three things that are guaranteed to work. Money, alcohol, and chassidut. Stick with me for a second. Money is guaranteed to make you meshuggah. Alcohol is guaranteed to make you shikr. You know what that means? Drunk. And chassidus or chassidut is guaranteed to make you more refined. Now let's go through all three. If someone says, I have money and I'm not crazy, you don't have enough money. If you had enough money, you'd be a little bit meshuggah. Someone says, I drank it, I didn't get shikr, I drank alcohol, I didn't get drunk. You didn't drink enough alcohol. And someone says, I studied chassidus and I'm still the same person. You didn't study enough. You didn't study enough. That's the truth, right? That's the truth. And so the goal of all this is to move us, and how does it move us? So Kabbalah and Chassidus explains the mechanism by which this works. It's because there's a very tight wiring between the mind and the heart. And the heart, we understand, is what propels action. When you're excited about something, you're far more likely to act on it. Now, there's no guarantee. There's always the possibility for there to be a disconnect between the emotions and the actions. It's possible. There's no guarantees in life. But we get much closer to action when we're excited about doing something. If you're excited about, going to the circus. Are circuses okay? I don't even know. Whatever. If you're excited about, I picked up my mother, I picked up my mother last week from the airport. She's in town for a few days. Yeah. Yeah, but she was like, you saw her by the graduation, no? She was there by the graduation. Oh, you didn't see her? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, she's here. She's here.
She was in person at Torah studies.
Yes, and she was in person too. Exactly. She was Tuesday night. She had a fantastic week. Tuesday night Torah study, and then we had this petting zoo farm. We had all these chickens and ducks and geese come in, and we examine, you were there, right? The kashrut, what was kosher, the OU guys, right? And then Wednesday night, we went to a baseball game, as one does. Yeah, with my new Sinai and Civics cap. Boom. The merch. I took her to the game. So we went to the game. So she came to the game. Her first ever Atlanta Braves game. Wow. Yeah, the real deal. And Thursday night, what was Thursday night? The graduation was Thursday night. Shia, my son Shia, graduated 8th grade and officially closed out his school career here in Atlanta at CMCA at the Chabad school. Next year, please God, high school in Chicago. That's it. We've kicked him out of the house. It's over. It's been a good run. Yeah, so why am I saying this? I'm driving from the airport and I see on the left side going, I guess, north, there's tents. I don't know. Is there a circus there? I guess. Anyway, so there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that what you're excited about you'll do, but you get much closer to action if you're passionate about something. As opposed to if you're just like, oh, I think it's a good idea. How many good ideas do we have that we never act on? Plenty of good ideas. In case you're lacking any, I've got plenty of good ideas that I can share with you that are, that a good idea is a good idea. But getting excited about a good idea, now we're getting closer. Still not guaranteed, but it's getting closer. So Kabbalah teaches, and Chassidus explains, that there's a very tight connection between the mind and the heart. In fact, Moach shalat al halev betul dato. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, the founder of Chabad, writes in his seminal book called Tanya, Moach shalit al halev means the mind governs, controls, rules over. Shalit, like a ruler, rules over the heart, betul dato, by its very ingrained nature. In other words, by inherent nature, the mind controls the heart. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know people whose heart controls their mind, the other way around, right? I know people whose mind is completely twisted by what they want to do, and so they'll judge, and that's possible also. But that's a distortion of the natural state of things. The natural state of things is that the mind is stronger than the heart. Even though the heart is very powerful, but the mind has the ability to be controlled. It's why we tell children. It's why we tell children from the very youngest of ages, I know you want the cookie, you can't have the cookie. Just switch out cookie for whatever it is. And by the way, adults also, we need to speak to our inner child and say the same thing. I know you want the cookie, and you can't have the cookie. And it's okay. It's okay to want it, but it's also okay to know that you can't have it, and to exercise the muscle of the mind, being able to tell the heart, no, or not now, or not ever, right? Whatever that is. It's important for a human being. It's a stage of maturity. It's a stage of growth to know that the heart can want and the mind can tell the heart, take it easy. It's a healthy step. So I say this because it's important to recognize that the ideas that we have in our mind, or the things that we think about, things that we meditate on, naturally have an effect. It's how the entire structure of tefillah, of Jewish prayer, flows. The entirety of the Siddur, and I'm looking over here because I see next to this mini ark, which is here from yesterday's. Oh, Dad, you were here, right? Yeah, for the kids. Is there Torah still in there? The little Torah?
No, I don't think they moved it.
Okay, so there's a little Torah in there. By the way, after the class, if you want to see a treat, I'll show you possibly the smallest kosher Torah that you've ever seen. Is right in there in that ark. It's like a tiny Torah, but it's not a kid's Torah. It's like a kosher Torah, 100% kosher Torah. It's harder to write a small Torah because you have to you got to write very small. It's all handwritten. Next to it, you see there's a Chumash and 2 Siddurim, 2 prayer books. The entirety of Jewish prayer is structured in this model. It's structured with Psukei de Zimra, verses of praise in which we thank God for the life that we have, the life that we've been given, the blessings that we all experience, both personally and also collectively. Then we segue, as we've discussed many times, into talking about the angels and their appreciation for God Almighty. And then we get to the Shema. And as we say the Shema, we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. We talk about the oneness of God. And we immediately follow up that with the idea of V'ahavta. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. We immediately follow the notion of Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, which is the idea of Shema meaning understand this, it's a call to meditate and think about this. We immediately follow it with v'ahavta, with a call to love. And if the commentaries ask, how can you be commanded to love? How can you command an emotion? And Chassidus explains, we're not commanding an emotion. There's a mitzvah to love, but we're not commanding an emotion. Because somebody could say, either I feel love or I don't feel love. You tell me, you have to love God. What if I don't love God? The mitzvah is to think about the things that will generate a love for God. That's the mitzvah. Can you control what you think about? Yes, you can. Say, I can't control my feelings. But you can control what you think about. And what you think about affects your feelings. And so you kind of can. So we're not gonna legislate emotions. Like, I can't legislate, I can't change how I feel. Okay, sure. But make sure you're thinking about how amazing your life is blessed. Despite all of the other things that you still need, that you don't, whatever it is, think about Rosita. Great to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Despite all of the things that we still need, and that we pray for, that we daven for, and that Hashem surely will bless us with. How many blessings do we have? The fact that we're all here. The fact that our eyes are open, that our minds can function, so Gazum, bless you. The fact that we are here, that we are alive, that we are breathing from that very basic ability, there's already enough, dayenus to fill a whole Haggadah. Thank God, if you only gave me this dayenu, and if you only gave me that dayenu, and you gave me all of this, dayenu, all right? I mean, it's amazing. Hey, good morning. Good to see you, doctor. All right. Welcome, welcome. So when you think about all of the blessings, oh, by the way, if you want, there's a breakfast. If you want to grab some eats in that small room, do you know how to? Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So when we think about all of the blessings that we have, so the way the Siddur, the way the prayer book is designed, is to get us to think about all the blessings. Think about the blessings that we have. We begin with the morning bracha, the morning blessings. Thank God I can see. Thank God I can stand. Thank God I can walk. Thank God I have clothes to put on. All of these things, don't take it for granted. Then we talk about how God mechadesh. No, that's a little later. We talk about how God provides for the animals and for the ravens. It says because the mother ravens don't give their baby. I don't know if this is. I've never looked this up. We should have asked our bird expert the other night. God provides for the baby ravens because the mother sometimes doesn't provide for the baby ravens. So it says in the Siddur. God provides for all living creatures. And then we talk about how God renews all of creation at every moment. There's so much to be grateful for. And the idea here is that the Siddur, the prayer book, functions and is predicated on the fact that what you and I think about is what you and I will feel. And you think about how much God blesses us. When we think about that, we can't help but love. In Tanya, one of the later chapters, he gives an example. He gives a mashal, he gives a parable of a guy who is completely in a terrible situation. This guy is, in the language of Tanya, his guy's like just broken and beaten, and he's found in like a literal garbage dump. Like he's not like nothing. He's completely down to nothing. And the king, not just somebody, the king comes by and takes note of him and lifts him up and takes him with him and embraces him and cleans him up and puts on new clothes on him and hugs him and kisses him, it says, okay, right? Hugs him and kisses him and embraces him and gives him a new life. And then the Alter Rebbe asks the following question. How is this man going to feel toward the king? What's the emotions of the king? The most incredible love and gratitude in a reciprocal fashion. And then the Alter Rebbe says, think about it. What's our national story? What's that? What's the story of our people? We were slaves in Egypt, lost to history. We would have been completely lost to history. No trace ever. Maybe in some museum somewhere there was once upon a time children of Israel would it even have made a footnote or an asterisk in history? Probably even not. How many peoples did the Egyptians enslave that we probably don't even know about today? And God himself, as we say on Passover, not with an angel, not with a seraph, but God himself, b'chvodo v'atzmo, in his glory, in his essence, he came and took us out and lifted us out of the downtroddenness that we were in. How can we not feel gratitude? And if you say, says the Alter Rebbe, well, that happened 3,000 years ago. What have you done for me lately? Just think about how when we sleep, what do we have? Right? We're out. And our souls are a little bit separated from our bodies. And every morning when we wake up, it's God returning our life, returning our soul to us. And the gratitude that we ought to feel for being lifted up and given the opportunity. And the fact that we have Torah, a mission statement for life. Imagine what life would look like without Torah. We wouldn't even know what's right, what's left, what's up, what's down, where to go, what to do. We have Torah that God gives us. It's not a once upon a time that God rescued us from the depths of despair. It happens every day, physically and every day spiritually. That God gives us what we need to function, to thrive. And so how can we not feel reciprocal love? But you know what? It begins in the mind. You have to have that cogitation. You have to have that mindset of God is giving me these blessings, and therefore I ought to have gratitude, because it's easy to take it for granted. It's too easy to take life, to take Torah, to take the blessings that we have for granted. By nature, I think we do take things for granted. But it's important to recognize that that it's in our own best interest to be grateful. And I say all this again to highlight the idea that the notion that the mind controls the heart, or the mind governs the heart, or the mind directs the heart, is so important, and it's so embedded within Jewish belief. It's at the core of the prayer liturgy. It's at the core of really personal and spiritual growth. Change happens, changing the mind, which changes the heart, changes everything. And by the way, that's not to say that whatever we think about automatically stirs an emotion. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. Getting back to the Egyptian conversation, Mitzrayim, the Hebrew word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, comes from the Hebrew word Meitzar. Meitzar means, what is Meitzar? Meitzar means a narrow space. And Kabbalah points out that when you look at the human body, there's a narrow space between the head and the heart. What do we call that? This is not a mystical question. What's the narrow space, the narrow channel between head and the torso? Thank you, the neck. I'm sure you all were thinking of it, right? It's the neck. The neck is the Meitzar Hagaron. It's the narrow space of the neck. And it says in the neck, there are 3 Gimel Sarei Paro. There are 3 officers, 3 ministers of Pharaoh. The Kana, the Veshet, and the Vridin. There's the windpipe, the food pipe. Help me out here. There's the esophagus and the trachea and the Vridin. Vridin is like the, it's the, what's the artery? Carotid artery? Okay. Yeah, it's like the blood. Whatever, one of those. It's the blood that flows. Kana, Vesha, Vridin. Gimel, Sarei, Paro. The 3 ministers of Pharaoh. And you know what? Sometimes they want to block the good stuff. Sometimes the neck, not physically, but conceptually, right? Sometimes we think and we meditate and we study and we can't feel. We feel like, I don't know, like it hasn't moved me. Like I'd love to feel. I want to feel. I don't feel anything. So what do? I'm studying this, but it's not moving me. I mean, moving me like in an emotional way. Okay, so again, like I said before, all that means if you, as I used the example before of alcohol and money, if you drank and you didn't get shikar, it means you didn't drink enough. So if you studied and it didn't move you, you got to study a little bit more. But also to recognize that sometimes, you know, you got to, and the Alter Rebbe Tanya actually deals with this specific issue of, he calls it timtum halev, which means like a blocked heart. Not like a physically blocked heart. That's another, you know, that's a medical thing. Good to see you. Welcome. That's a physical condition, but a blocked heart in the context of a heart that's unmoved. And he says sometimes to move your own heart, you have to kind of, I don't know what the right word is. You have to open yourself up in a genuine and authentic way by thinking about all of the things that you need, that need to be worked on, and that kind of like breaks you open in a way to be a little bit more vulnerable with yourself. All right, all of this again to highlight the deep connection between mind and heart. The question thus becomes, if the mind and heart are connected, does that mean that somehow they share the same origin? That somehow they share the same substance? That somehow they are inherently connected? And Kabbalah definitively answers no. Mind is the mind, the heart is the heart, or in the context of what they do, intellect is intellect or intelligence, and emotions are emotions. They're two different realities. But one gives rise or gives birth to the other. It's a very important concept. Meaning, just because the natural normative state, assuming that there's no blockage, the neck blockages that I just mentioned, assuming there's no blockages, the normative flow would be, you think of something, you cogitate on it, you turn it around a few times in your head, and then you begin feeling something. Just because that is the flow does not mean that somehow the emotions are being are somehow an extension of an idea. Feelings are not extensions of ideas. There's something new that the idea is kind of producing. And so as we'll see today inside our text, very interestingly, one thing can produce another thing, but not be that thing. Correct? Sometimes one thing evolves into another thing. When I was growing up in the 80s, there was this toy that was all the rage, and it was called Transformers. Who remembers Transformers? Right? Their subtitle was "More Than Meets the Eye." I think that was I think so, in the show. Whatever. Transformers, more than meets the eye. And it's like, oh, it's a truck, and it's a robot. Robot? Yeah, I guess it would be a robot. Right? Like this sort of thing. So sometimes the one thing transforms or evolves. You remember the Transformers?
Of course.
Yeah. It was like G.I. Joe, My Little Pony. I mean, these were the things. That's what was going on, at least from my recollection. It's been a minute. I'm sure they all came back and then went out again a few times because as trends go. So, sometimes something evolves into something else, and sometimes it doesn't evolve into something else, but it produces something else. So the question is, do ideas become feelings, or do ideas produce feelings? And I'm not going to leave you in any sort of suspense. Kabbalah says definitively, ideas do not become feelings. They're two separate realities. But ideas produce feelings. They give birth to, they give rise to feelings. They don't become feelings. Two separate realms of reality. Now, why is this important? We'll see why it's important soon. The idea that ideas don't become emotions is, I wouldn't say threatened or challenged by, but it's pushed by the following notion. And that is, sometimes the mind can get excited about an idea. Let me say that again. The mind itself, not the heart. The mind itself can get excited about an idea. You learn something, and it makes sense, and it all comes together, and now you're excited. The question is, 1 second, pop. Slow this down. Where is the excitement? Is the excitement in the heart? Is it an emotional excitement, or is it an intellectual excitement? In truth, the conception could be both. But there is a possibility for there to be intellectual excitement without it being emotional excitement. Which means that there's something in the mind that also has the ability to feel, but not feeling on an emotional level, but on an intellectual level. And those emotions don't serve, that intellectual excitement doesn't serve the emotions of the heart, it serves the intelligence in the mind. How do you know that you got it, the idea? How do you know that you understand it, that you got it, that it makes sense when you're excited about it. I don't mean you're excited as an outcome emotionally from the idea, but when you're excited about the idea, that's almost like the culmination. The pleasure of the idea is almost the indicator that you got it. Comes full circle. The emotions serve the idea. These intellectual emotions serve the idea. They don't serve the emotions of the heart. Now, it's possible that I lost everyone. I'm hoping I didn't. Does this make sense? This last point? Yes? Sort of? Sort of? Okay. I'm gonna restate it one more, just like quickly, and then we'll see it inside. Hopefully, it'll kind of like make sense seeing the words there. Again, we have two different worlds, ideas and feelings. And we try to keep them, even though one leads to the other, one gives rise to the other, try to keep them separate. But again, Kabbalah teaches that it's possible, and not only possible, but it happens all the time, that when we're studying something and you understand it, you have an aha moment, like, I got it, and you get excited about it. So where's that excitement? Is that an excitement of the heart or excitement of the mind? So it's possible, again, your mileage may vary, but there is a possibility for there to be an excitement within the mind itself. But that excitement serves the mind and not the heart. So there's almost two types of excitement. There's the excitement of the mind and the excitement of the heart. And those are two separate realities. One is serving itself, the intellectual excitement, and one serves as the emotional excitement. Two different levels of excitement. Okay. I don't know if that clarified anything, but that was my attempt to restate it. Okay. So what we're going to do today is look at this duality, because what we're really touching on is a very important point. Sometimes things exist for the other. Sometimes things exist for oneself, and the other can benefit from it also. Do you see the difference? See if I can think of a good example for this. So, I have a good example. You ever talk to yourself out loud? It's possible, right? Yeah. You might be alone in a room and you find yourself talking to yourself. Now, would you say that that's the same thing as talking to someone else? No. I'm just going to answer the question. I'm going to say no. What's the difference? When you're talking to someone else, the intention is that someone else should hear, understand, or whatever. So you're taking your ideas or feelings or whatever it is, and you're packaging it, hopefully, that the other person should be able to understand it. But what if you're talking to yourself, and somebody happens to walk by? They hear you talking, but it's not for them. It's not meant for them, and they're probably not going to understand it. It's for you. The fact that someone else overhears it, whatever, that's incidental. Meaning sometimes there's an expression, an act of expression that's meant for self, and it's just that somebody else might also benefit from or perceive, versus something that's directed from the beginning, from the get-go, lechatchila, from the get-go, for the benefit of someone else. You see the difference? Okay. Can I get a little bit meta today? Right? I feel like part of what I said today was directed to you. But part of it might have sounded like I was speaking to myself and you were overhearing it. The parts that didn't make a lot of sense. Right? Are you with me on this? I'll give you an example. How do you know when something is meant for the other versus it's just like, I'm doing my thing and if you want to enjoy it, you can have it? How do you know? Like, where do you see that? I'll give you an example. The difference between, well, all right, I don't want to get into the psychology of physics, but I might anyway. The difference between water and light. Let me explain. Imagine you have a lightly flowing stream. Anybody live near a stream? Yeah? All right, you have a nice lightly flowing stream. What would happen? Let's give for instance, let's give an example. What would happen if you would take some stones, some twigs, and kind of like try to obstruct the flow of the water? What would happen? So it's the pressure is going to build up. I think, right? The pressure is going to build up to the point that at some point it's going to, either it'll stop in the water, if you built it strong enough, that's called a dam, right? But if it's not so strong, then it's going to build up, the pressure will build up until it blasts through that, and suddenly your very calm flowing stream has turned into like a bit of a little bit more agitated flow of water. If there are clouds blocking the sun, how agitated does the sun get? Does more light, heat build up on that side? No. This is not my example. This is the example that Kabbalah brings for this. Some things are made to be received. And when they're not received, then it disturbs the giver. Because what do you mean? This is all about you receiving it. If you're not receiving it, then I got to try harder. I got to invest stronger. I have to or it hurts me that you didn't receive it. Because it's all about you. But sometimes, that's like the water example. Even though, again, I don't know that the stream has the psychology of I want the water to go there, whatever. The sun is very different. The sun is like, I am just shining. I don't care if you ever get the light or not, meaning I'm shining. If you block it, if you pull down your window shades and block it, the sun's not getting offended. The sun doesn't get angry, doesn't get offended. It's not. The sun is shining. The fact that you can also benefit from it, great. The sun is what we would call bederach memela. The sun is shining on its own. It's shining. The fact that there's a recipient or there's no recipient, like the famous philosophical question, if a tree falls in a forest and there's no one around, does it make a sound? The famous philosophical question? I don't know the answer to that question, because maybe I'm not a philosopher. But I will say this. I think I know the answer that's given, but I will say this. If there's no one around to enjoy the sun, does it bother the sun? It does not bother the sun. There's some teachers that could walk into a classroom, the kids might not be paying attention, and the teacher's like, well, I'm being paid to share my lesson, so I'm going to talk. And then whoever listens, whoever does it. I don't actually care. Okay, one second. Is it possible that there might be a teacher that shows up and is like, not, right? Present company, all excluded, but a teacher that's like, whatever, I don't get paid to make sure you learn, I get paid to teach. So I'm going to talk, and if no one shows up, all right, I don't care, I'm going to talk. That's it. That's my role. And then you have another teacher, the teacher that really cares about the recipient and really cares that not only that they're sharing the information, but that you're getting the information. The teacher that cares that it's hitting and it's impacting and it's transforming and it's elevating the student. So this represents two different types of reality, two different types of sharers. There are those that share, or there's a modality of sharing that's about me sharing and less about you receiving. And that another modality that's primarily about you receiving and less about me sharing. Meaning, it's like in order for you to get, I need to give, but it's really about you getting. That's the second model. Whereas the first model is about me sharing. Whether you get it or not, I don't really care. Does that make sense? As Kabbalah maps the cosmic energies, it defines, and we'll see this in a moment inside, it teaches us that there are certain energies, certain divine energies, that are really all about self and self-expression. And the fact that it might also shine or be revealed to someone else is incidental, because it's really about itself shining. In the language of Kabbalah, I'll just introduce two Hebrew words here. There's mashpia and mekabel. What is the mashpia? Mashpia would be the giver, and mekabel would be the receiver. Mashpia is the giver. So if it's education, teacher, student, but more broadly and less specific about teaching, it's mashpia, mekabel, the giver and the receiver. And so there's two models. One model where the mashpia is all about giving, not about you receiving. You get it, great. If you don't get it, I don't really care. I'm giving. This experience is about me revealing, shining, it's more about self-expression than anything else. And self-expression is less about you getting my self-expression and more about me expressing myself. Let's say somebody's writing a blog. I'm trying to give examples. All these are examples of the same duality. Somebody's writing a blog, and they write their musings, their thoughts, a Substack. Today they call it Substack. Substack, that's all the rage. It used to be a blog, it was very simple. Now it's a Substack, and you have to subscribe and whatever, maybe pay for it. All right, Substack. So you write your thoughts and your musings. It might not be about an audience. It might just be that you have things that you just want to get off your chest, right? And then there are things that you might write that are specifically intended to impact someone else. It's not about you. It's not about you getting it off your chest. It's about impacting the person who's going to read it. It's not about me. It's about you. So sometimes, again, a tale of two expressions. One expression is about me expressing self. The other one is about you receiving something that I'm giving you. Those are two different realities. Does that make sense? As we'll see today, as we know, there are 7 emotional attributes of God. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. 6 of the 7 are about self-expression. 1 of the 7 is about the recipient, and only for the recipient. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod are all about self-expression. These are emanations of Hashem, attributes of God, that are all about expressing divine power, ability, these attributes of God shining. Malchut, the last one, is different than the others. It's not about self-expression. It's about delivering something to a recipient. And I want to share the clincher to this concept. And then we're going to go the much promised reading the text inside stage. Shame is also an English word, but in Hebrew, shame means name. And a dog is a fish. But that's another story, all Hebrew, right? Shame means name. What is a name? A name doesn't exist for you. A name is not about your self-expression. A name is designed so that somebody else can call you. If you were alone on a desert island and no one was around, would you need a name for your self-expression? No, you would just be me. That would be weird if you were me, but you know what I mean, right? You would just be I. Again, weird, right? But you would just be you. You wouldn't need a name. The only reason you need a name is for someone else. Malchut is shame. Name. Malchut is the name. Is not the name, is called name. It's the only attribute that's not about God's self-expression, but rather it only exists for the recipient. And with all of this introduction in mind, let's now study inside. All right, so I'm going to pass these copies around. These are fresh copies, fresh off the press / copy machine. I'm passing down too many. Not too many, but I'm passing down more than we need. So just keep the ones that we don't need back there, and that will be fine. Everyone should grab a copy. We're about to study inside. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start chapter 5 of our text, Creation and Redemption. And by the way, it's called Creation and Redemption because the text talks about the difference between God creating the world and God, the difference between the natural state and the miraculous state. Let's look at page 66, chapter number 5, and I will read this. Okay, the above serves as an analogy for the supernal realm. And if you look at footnote 97, it says the discourse now applies the distinction drawn between man's emotional attributes and his feeling of exaltedness, malchut, to the supernal realm, explaining how the supernal attribute of malchut differs from the other attributes, as I mentioned just a minute ago. All up back inside. the main text. All of these supernal attributes are revelations of the blessed infinite light. They come into being because of the infinite light, not because of the worlds, and not as a response to human instigation. And that line right there, I think, should make sense given the introduction that I just gave. I'm going to read that line again. All of the supernal attributes, aside from Malchut, which is going to be the distinct one, are revelations of the blessed infinite light, meaning it's God revealing himself. And they come into being because of the infinite light, not for the purpose of the worlds, meaning it's self-expression. It's like a person talking to themselves. It's like a person blogging or substacking. Can we say that? I don't know. Not for any readership, but just because these are musings. Someone painting. Not for an audience. Not to sell any paintings, but just as a form of self-expression. I'm not going to say therapy. I'm not suggesting God needs therapy to self-express in order to, but it's a form of self-expression. Let's continue. Although the attributes relate to the worlds, as the verse states, "O God, remember your mercies and your kindnesses, for they are me'olam, eternal," implying that mercies and kindness, chesed, etc., relate to the world's olamot. Although that is true, that when you talk to yourself, somebody might also be able to hear it. Although it's true that when God's sphirot shine, the world can perceive it, this is true only in the sense that the attributes are on a level that relates to the worlds. For the levels beyond, i.e. above, the attributes do not relate to the worlds, whereas the attributes are on a level that does relate to the worlds. If I were to switch back into my analogy of the self-talk, of talking to oneself, I would say that the thoughts that you have in your mind, no one walking by can hear. At least not yet, until the technology gets there. So the thoughts in your mind, they don't know. The talking to yourself that you're saying alone in a room and you don't realize someone's walking by, they can hear. It still doesn't make it for them. It means it's on a wavelength that they can grab, but it doesn't mean that it's trained or designed for them. Let's continue. But this does not mean that the attributes are for the worlds. Indeed, the attributes are revelations that come into being because of the infinite light. It's just that they are also on a level that relates to the worlds. Again, the best example that I can give, that I've given now several times, is the talking to oneself. Because that form of self-expression has been assumed the form of speech, so someone walking by or someone sitting in the corner of the room, they can hear it. But it doesn't mean that I'm talking to myself for them. I'm talking to myself for myself. They happen to be able to hear it. That's good on them, or whatever. But it's not for them. I'm not sharing. Oh, I have a better example. I don't know if it's a better example. It's probably the same example. But here's another example. Imagine a notebook, a diary that you write for yourself. Well, this is a great example, I think. Maybe we'll hit a wall with the example, but here's how, let me spin it out as I'm thinking right now. You write a diary, and you're writing your own personal thoughts, your own personal musings. It's not intended for an audience. In fact, as a kid, you locked your diary in a special box so that your brother or sister wouldn't read it. Did anybody write a diary when they were a kid? Yeah? Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. You write a diary, a little key, and you don't want anyone to read it. It's not intended for the audience. It's intended for you. Now, one second. Once you put it in writing, is it possible that if it fell into the wrong hands, somebody could read it? Of course. But they're not reading something intended for them. Even though it's words that can be read and understood, I mean, how? Listen. One of the most famous books from the Holocaust is a diary, right? The Diary of Anne Frank. And then you have, after the Rebbe passed away, they found his diaries. They weren't diaries like personal diaries, but they were like notebooks where he wrote Torah thoughts that had never been published, never been seen before. And there was several years of publishing, going through them and publishing. And they were written shorthand, like very sparse references to ideas that then a team of scholars had to put together and weave the narrative of what these insights were actually trying to say to the best guess of the editors. And that is a 3 or 4 volume set known as Rishimot, which means notes. The Rebbe's Rishimot, there's a set in the Daily Shul. It's very cool. You have the original, they show the original. There's actually a facsimile, like a photocopy of the original. You can see the handwriting, like the notebook. I think the Rebbe used like graph paper, like math. He was also an engineer, so like graph paper. And then when they type it up, you have the original notes that are very, like if you read it, you usually don't know what's going on. And then they have, it opened up a little bit, what it means, what it's saying, and that sort of thing. When you're writing your diary, it's not for anyone else. The sfirot, the six sfirot, other than Malchut, Chesed, Gevura, Teferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, those 6 energies are not for the worlds. Oh, can the worlds relate to it on some level? Sure, just like if I get a hold of someone's diary, I can read the words, but it doesn't mean that they wrote it for me. That's why, if you look over there, I highlighted the word for, or I italicized the word for. It says, this doesn't mean, just because the worlds just because you and I might be able to perceive or feel those energies, that doesn't mean that the attributes are for the worlds. Indeed, the attributes are revelations that come into being because of the infinite light. It's like the infinite light's diary. It's just that they're on a level that relates to the worlds. All right, let's continue. The lower 7. Making sense? Yes? Okay. Yeah.
So you're saying that those 6 spheroids, God uttered them and created the world, or basically you're saying that was the part that God was expressing himself, and we just happened to.
Correct. Just happened to be walking by at the right time in the right place. Meaning the worlds can perceive it, they can feel it, they can be impacted by it, but it's not for that purpose.
So how does it translate to the fact that we believe in Kabbalah that we all have?
Let me give you an example. There's 2 types of chesed. Maybe this is the best example of all. There's 2 types of chesed. One type of chesed is I want to do something kind. And so therefore, you're going to benefit. But it's not really about you. It's I'm moved to do something kind. The second way is, I want to do something kind for you. To the recipient, it might not make much of a difference, because you might be receiving the same thing. But in the experience of the giver, it's completely different. One is about self-expression, meaning expressing my kindness. I have a desire to do chesed, to be kind. In order to do that, I need to actually give something or help someone or feed someone. There has to be an action. But it's not really about the recipient. It's about me doing something. By the way, it doesn't make it good or bad. It just makes it a different experience. Whereas the second modality is, I don't have a desire to be kind. It's not about I want to be kind. It's this person needs something. I'm responding to a need. It's a different. Okay, this is actually very important. And this is probably the best example. After talking to self and writing diaries, I think we landed on maybe the clearest distinction and the most relevant to our conversation. So let's talk about this for a second. When it comes to tzedakah, for example, there's 2 forms of giving. There is what we call proactive giving, which in halacha is called meiser. In English, it's been called tithing. Meiser means proactively. I'm taking a percentage of my earnings, etc., and I'm giving it. It's about my obligation almost to give, or my desire to give and be generous. But then there's another obligation. More an obligation of tzedakah, which is a little bit different. Even though we use the words interchangeably, and so whatever, it kind of loses the distinction, but in halakha there's a distinction. In Jewish law, there's a distinction. The second idea is if somebody asks for help, to give them what they need. So it's not about me giving. See, the first one is about how much do I have, what is the percentage that I'm giving, and it's about me, it's a proactive. Obviously someone's going to get it, but it's more about me giving on some level. The second form of tzedakah is responding to a need. So it's only whatever is needed, right? It's not like it's not based on what I have; it's based on what they need. and it's not self-generated or initiated. It comes as a response to a request. Someone knocks on your door and says, "Hey, I have this and this need." It happened to me last week. Someone knocks on the door and says, "I have this need. Can you help?" Sure. How much you need, whatever it is. Here you go. That's a different form. That's not proactive giving. That's responsive giving. By the way, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there's two different forms. One is self-expression almost, that benefits someone else. And one is initially designed and trained, focused on helping the other. It's not about self, it's about the other. The reason why I'm saying this is because you asked a very good question. You see that, well, hold on, Hashem, God creates the world, and then these Sefirot are emanating and impacting the world. So what does it mean, self-expression? Does God want this to impact the world or not? The answer is yes. It's like the example of chesed, of kindness, where of course it's always going to benefit someone. There's no concept of being kind and in not impacting someone else. That's why maybe my example of speaking to self before was a bad example, because maybe no one walks by, and then I'm just speaking to myself. But when it comes to chesed, when it comes to kindness, if I'm doing kindness, it's obviously going to help someone. But there could be two motivations. One motivation is, I want to be kind today. Like, I want to do something kind and generous. And that's amazing. And someone's going to benefit. But the other one is, hold on, there's a need that we've identified, and I'm going to help this need. Both important forms of giving, but two different forms of chesed. We had an example of the second at the beginning of class. Right, where there's a need, like we need another coffee machine, and it's like, okay, done. It's like, I see a need, boom. It's not self-expression. It's not like I was looking to give something. Who needs it? This is like, I've identified a need. We're gonna help fulfill that need. Again, both are valuable, both are important, but the distinction is there's two different types. So the 6 Sfirot, Chesed through Yesod, are primarily self-expression. God wants to do kindness, so I guess he needs people. God wants to create boundaries, so I guess he needs people. He needs a world. All of those you need a world for, but it's more about self-expression. Malchut, the last one, which we haven't really talked about yet, is not just God wants to be king, so he needs a people. It only comes as a response to the need of people to have a king, to have a leader. I think that would be the safest distinction. So in our own experience, what's interesting is, does this also parallel our own experience? That chesed is only self-expression as opposed to the other one? I don't think that's the case. But when it comes to the energies above, here we're dividing it into these two silos. The ones that are about self-expression, whereas the ones that are about, fulfilling that need of the other. Let's do a little bit more inside. Again, kind of makes sense, sort of. Okay, let's jump back into the text. The lower 7. Oh, okay. By the way, when Kabbalah tries to give examples that help, sometimes it just makes things a little bit more. Anyway, so here we have an example, an illustration, but hopefully it'll help, and if not, we'll just skate on by. The lower 7. By way of illustration, let us consider the fact that the 7 lower attributes of each Sephira relate to the sphere directly beneath them. What that means is as follows. Here we get into meta-Sephira conversation. Within each Sephira energy, there are the subset of all 7 within them. So Chesed has Chesed within Chesed, and Gvura within Chesed, and Tiferet within Chesed, and Netzach within Chesed, and Hod within Chesed, and Yesod within Chesed, and Malchut within Chesed. Every attribute on its own has the 7 mini pieces inside of it. Okay. Because we count the Omer, it's exactly when we encounter that. Yes. 7 times 7 is 49. Now, this does not mean, and 1 second. And those 7 attributes, the 7 lower, 1 second. within every sphere, there's also the 3 intellectual things that are the higher part of the sphere, and the 7 emotional parts of that sphere that are the lower part. And that lower part relates to the sphere beneath it. Let's continue with what he says here. This does not mean that the lower 7, exist for the level, page 68 beneath them. Rather, they exist within the higher level. Meaning, Gevura of Chesed is about Gevura, about the next thing. No, it's about Chesed. But it's the part of the attribute that relates to the attribute beneath it, but it's still for that sphere itself. It is just that they are also on a level that relates to the lower level, as expressed in the saying, the external dimension of the higher level becomes the internal dimension of the lower level. Meaning the bottom half of the top half becomes the top half of the bottom half. Clear as mud, right? Right? You have a top and a bottom. The lower half of the top becomes the top half of the lower. But that doesn't mean that the lower half exists for that. It's just that it becomes that. But it's not that it exists for that. But it is not as though the 7 lower attributes exist for the lower level indeed. For indeed, they complete the higher level. And he gives the example that we started off with today, and this is how I want to end today's session. Intellect and emotions. Take, for example, intellect and emotions. The emotions of the heart come into being from intellectual excitement, the emotions of the intellect. So let me just clarify what he just said. We said that the mind, as I said at the beginning of today's class, reiterating this point, the mind controls the heart. So when you think about something and you cogitate or you meditate on it, then it will produce a feeling of something in the heart in a healthy scenario. And he says that the emotions of the heart come into being from intellectual excitement. When you're excited about the idea, then you get excited emotionally about it. But this does not mean, back inside, that the emotions of the intellect exist for the emotions of the heart. Rather, the emotions of the intellect complete the intellect itself. Meaning, the shlemut, the completion of the intellect, is that you also are excited about the idea. And then it produces an emotional excitement as well. But that's another thing. To illustrate this point, when a person understands and grasps a divine concept in his mind, he becomes excited in his mind by the goodness of the concept, ideally. Right? You study Kabbalah, you study about God, and like, wow, I love this idea. I'm excited about the idea in your head. Intellectually, you're excited about the idea. Let's continue. This excitement, which is the emotional aspect of the intellect of the idea, completes the intellect because it demonstrates that the individual understands and grasps the concept. Because if he would not understand and grasp it, he would not become excited about it. And listen to this line, a lack of excitement is a sign of a lack of understanding. Just saying. If you learn something, you're like, the question is, did you really get it? I mean, I guess it could be a subpar idea. But in this case, if you're studying about God and you really get it, you can't help intellectually be excited about it intellectually. So the emotions of the intellect complete the intellect. Let's continue. The fact that from the emotions of the intellect come, next page, page 70, as we breeze through this, become the emotions of the heart is because the emotions of the intellect are similar in character to the emotions of the heart. For emotions in general, whether of the mind or heart, are characterized by animation and excitement. But this does not mean that the emotions of the intellect exist for the emotions of the heart. On the contrary, the emotions of the intellect exist to complete the intellect. It's the shlemut, it's the completion of the intellectual experiences that you get excited about it in your head. However, once you get excited about it in your head, it's a short, hop, skip, and a jump to being excited about it in your heart. So it goes from mind to heart. How? Because you studied it, and you contemplated it, and then you got it, and you really grasped it, and then you got excited about it in your head, and then you're like, wow, now I'm actually excited about it in my body, in my heart. That's the progression. But do the emotions of the intellect, the intellectual excitement, is the reason why you're excited in order to trigger the emotions of the heart? No. You're excited about it in your mind because you got it, because because intellectually you got it. The fact that also helps the emotions of the heart be triggered is incidental and important, but it's not the reason for the emotions of the mind. In other words, back inside 70, as we kind of round up this example that, again, we started with today. In other words, the intellect itself transcends emotions. Only the lower 7 elements of the intellect, i.e. the emotions of the intellect, are on the same level, animation and excitement, as the emotions of the heart, and therefore it causes the awakening of the emotions of the heart. But this does not mean that the lower 7 elements of intellect, the emotion of the intellect, exist for the emotions of the heart. They are rather on their own distinct level. And here's where we stop for today. And so, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that what we're studying is not what we would call pop Kabbalah. What we're studying is the real deal. Like, we're getting ideas here. And when I mean pop Kabbalah, like easy breezy stuff. Like, close your eyes and meditate on a meadow and boom. Although that probably would illustrate what we're talking about today. This is not like, whatever, pop Kabbalah. These are ideas. These are subtle ideas. Intellect, emotions, the emotions of the intellect, the excitement of the emotions, and how everything bridges together. We talked about 2 forms of expression that might, to the outsider, look exactly the same. Somebody acted kind and someone else benefited from their kindness. But those 2 experiences might be completely different, whereas one is about self-expression, the other one is completely about the other person's need. We spoke about the concept of something existing on the level of the other but not being for the other, and that distinction. And it's all about differentiating between the 6 sfirot and malchut. That's the key. The key is to understanding what is malchut, the mystery of malchut. That's the entirety of this discourse, pretty much. Because if you unlock the mystery of malchut, you understand how the world was created and why the world was created in the way that it looks like. This world was created, our reality was created by malchut, which is the only divine energy that is not about self-expression, but it's about the need of the recipient. And therefore, the world that we live in is all about God responding to our needs. Not from a place of, I want to share this with you. You ever get a birthday gift? And you're like, wow, I guess that person, like, you buy, unless your wife is a golfer, you buy your wife a set of golf clubs. Like, I guess you wanted a set of golf clubs. I don't know if she wanted a set of golf clubs. You wanted to give a set of golf clubs. If she golfs, great. But otherwise, you might be saying, oh, are you not using them? Can I borrow them? that ploy might be what's driving it. But, if something is about self-expression, it usually looks one way. If something is about responding to the need of the other, it looks a bit of a different way. And as we'll see, Malchut is uniquely about the needs of the other. And that's how God creates the world, very attentive to what we need. What's wild, and as we'll see as this kind of progresses, what's wild is that God generates Malchut as a response to our need to create the world before we existed. That's where it gets a little bit trippy. Are you with me on this? Usually, in the second modality, you respond to someone's need because they exist and because they have a need, and maybe they told you their need, so you respond to their need. But if God generates Malchut responsive to our needs in order to create the world that didn't exist yet, how does that look? How can God respond to something that doesn't yet exist, that's not yet created, to create them with needs that he would then respond to? You with me?
I'm with you, but I have a question. So how do you explain that we learned that God created the world to have a dwelling place down here?
Yes. Are you saying that's God's need? That's God's needs as opposed to our needs? Very good question. Toba's asking, we're saying that the whole creation is predicated on God responding to our needs. So what kind of business is that we say in Kabbalah that God created the world because he had a need to have a home below? Sounds like his own need is being imposed upon us. God says, I want a space to be comfortable in the lowest of realms that you create for me. Great, so we're here for his need. So how does that fit with the idea that he's here for our need? That's it. No, I'm repeating your question. That's a very good question. And the answer, my friends, will come as we continue our journey in Kabbalah. But that's a very good question. It really comes down, and by the way, we can ask this in any relationship. Whether it's a parent relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a communal relationship, it's a spouse. You always have the same question. What is the relationship between the two parties? Because by the way, when we talk about mashpia makabel, like giver and receiver, that it's rarely ever one way. Like even when it comes to teaching. The Talmud says famously, quoting one of the great rabbis of the Talmud, he says, I learned a lot from my teachers, I learned even more from my colleagues, and I learned the most from my students. Umi talmidai yoter mikulam. I learned the most from my students. So even when you're teaching, and so clearly the relationship is mashpia makabel, like you're giving the information, they're receiving the information, not so fast. Even in that relationship, tables are turning. Toba just asked a great question. And I learned to delay the answer to the question to give myself a few more weeks to figure it out, right? I'm learning from the question. It's a great question, right? That's how it works. So what I mean to say is that in every relationship, there's give and take. In every conversation. I know I've been talking a lot today. All right, but in normal conversations, there's a lot of give and take, right? One person speaks, and the other listens, and then they switch roles. Then the other person speaks, and the first one listens. And that's the back and forth. That's a healthy back and forth. And so in every relationship, it's not about it really works on both sides. The question is always going to be, am I expressing myself, sharing, giving from a place of self-expression? Or is it from a place of what you need to receive? And one is not better than the other. There's two different modalities. It's not like, Malchut's better than Chesed. It's not a BuzzFeed article, Sfirot ranked. We're not ranking, which is better or more important. It's just saying there's two different modalities. Sometimes it's about self-expression. Sometimes I need to speak with you because I have to share something. And if you hear it, fine, but it's really about me sharing it. And sometimes it's sharing something that you need to hear. So what was today's class? Was it me sharing something that I needed to share or something that you needed to hear? I always try.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, good, both. Whew. We have the best of both worlds. Okay, good. I always try. Even though, again, this is harder. It's harder Kabbalah, what we're studying. It's not easy Kabbalah. It's a little bit more intricate and harder. If it seems a little bit like what's going, it's because it's harder stuff. But I try in every session to give something that you can walk away with and say, okay, that was for me. Not just the discourse wanted to share something, and so I happened to be in the room to hear it. But no, this was actually for me. And so maybe the lesson that we can all walk away from is this very lesson. When we're talking to somebody, let's ask ourselves, is this about self-expression, which is good also, or is it about what the other one needs to hear? And if the situation calls for one over the other, let's be attentive to what the situation indeed calls for. Sometimes it's important that they hear how we feel. And sometimes it's important for us to hear how they feel. Meaning to share something, to know who they are and where they're coming from. Okay. And with that, we officially wrap it for today. Thank you for joining me today for Kabbalah Café. Thank you for being part of this. We continue, very important. We're continuing throughout the summer. With rare exceptions of maybe a week, a Sunday off here and there. We're very consistent. Alex and Joy, it is great to see you guys here. I'm clapping for you guys because I love you guys. Thank you for being here. And it's great to see you. Welcome back. What else did I want to share? Very important. We have this new course starting, folks, Wednesday. It's called Sinai and Civics, 4 lessons about the Jewish or Torah influence in the founding of our country in connection with 250 years of the United States of America. Lesson 1, the foundations of the covenant. Lesson 2, the roots of equality. Lesson 3, in God we trust. And Lesson 4, separation of powers. Join me Wednesday and you get a cap. Look at this nifty little cap. You get a custom made. Look at this.
You hooked me.
See that? You get I got these custom made in California. Oh, Frank, by you. I mean, I'm kidding. I don't know exactly where you are. But yeah, made in California. This is great. We'll see you soon.
Is that class on Zoom?
Yes, of course, absolutely. Yeah, we do it daytime and evening. So I do it at 12 noon and at 7:30 p.m. Same class, both sessions, both in person and Zoom. And if you miss a session, you can always catch it on the recording afterwards. I have audio and video. It's basically very hard to actually miss a class. And if all else fails, I will come to you. And I'm kidding. But absent that, there's a lot of ways to catch it.
Can I send you an email and you send me the Zoom link?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, send me an email.
do that.
I'll hook you up.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Maxey, good to see you. Frank, good to see you. Jackie, good to see you. We'll close it out. Have a great week. Shavua Tov. Good to see you guys.